So, welcome to the fireside chat, Meera. Really nice to have you here, and super excited. So, looking forward to hearing about your whole journey in this recording. So, tell me more about yourself, your origin, your story of your engineering degree, how you came to the country, and what has it been like for you?
I mean, I think my story is not so different from, many people in the Valley, especially Silicon Valley. If you're in tech, you will come across the story that I can tell. This is my story from many, many, many people. Of course, I was born in India, did my undergrad in India, but the only difference is I'm from a very small town, and it's the southern part of India where pretty much I always tell that, I was the outcast because I didn't get married until I turned 20. Then week after 20, I got engaged and married, and I was considered too old because I was from a community where people typically get married between 16 and 17. And of course, it's not happening anymore. And thankfully, thank God. But that's kind of the small town I was from. And luckily, my parents fought the family or kind of galvanized the support from the family to send me out for an engineering school. So I was very fond of computer science because then my neighbor boy bought this little, I don't know anybody who has been, I'm dating myself. This is like you connect to the TV, it's this one keyboard like computer that can do only two things. You can code in BASIC, and then it has a game called Paddle. This little ball that bounces around, and there's this little paddle you can move around to.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I mean, I'm dating myself. That's the most, how do I say, interesting computer game ever, right? And he was trying to show off saying that it's not for girls, and it just irritated me. I said, you know what? I'm going to just show it to you. I'm going to be a good programmer. Luckily, my school just started a computer science program for 11th graders and 12th graders, but they didn't even have a faculty. So one of the things was I just took the session, and I know that I have to get good grades because it's going to influence if I want to go into engineering. So I actually asked a college professor whether he'll teach me so that I can learn and teach the class at the time. So Saturday I go and learn from him, and then during the class I will teach everybody, and then I'll go and learn from him. So for almost 4 months we didn't have a faculty. I was this quasi faculty come student from one place I learned and other place. The goodness was, since I was doing, I got access to computer time. I mean, it was a very hard thing to get access. We didn't have a computer in the school. It was only in the college that they'll give us. I mean, again, it's a very conservative community, so we can't go into men's college. So on Saturday, there was a certain time the men are not allowed to the computer lab, and only the girls can go and do it, which is like, I think, if I'm right, I remember like we'll get 5-minute slot for every person. By the time we type 2 commands, it will be done. So somebody else will go and finish the rest of the program typing. Somebody else will go and try to compile the program. That's kind of the fun thing that we did. And of course, that took me to computer science engineering. Right out of college, got married, and really a great guy who became my friend, husband, mentor. I used to joke around with people. People get their wife, the first gift is something more romantic. He bought me books for how to crack the interviews with analytic skills and logical skill, reasoning kind of puzzles and quizzes. That's what we used to do together, and we'll compete with each other, who does most. And that took me into software engineering. Did about, for I would say, a little over a decade into product engineering work for startups. I mean, one company for 3 years, I was the only woman. The joke I used to have, a startup in Silicon Valley, I get the bathroom for myself. The rest of the company use one bathroom. And then I also work for something like a really large company like Nortel, which gave me the foundation, because I think there's a goodness about startups and also large companies, because when you're young, when you're working in a large company, you get to see people who are very seasoned, wisdom driven, a lot of resources. I mean, I have to say my engineering foundation definitely came from Nortel, giving me that kind of, looking at people who are PhDs, worked in the field for a very long time, so seasoned, take you under their wings and teach you so many things, the foundations. And that gave me the foundation to do things that today I still stand on, which actually helped me to grow. So is Cisco. When I went to Cisco, Cisco was my first job, which is out of product engineering. I didn't want to leave technology, but I wanted to kind of learn all parts of business. Luckily, somebody took me under their wings. And when I went in, of course, I was a technologist. I have zero knowledge of IT technologies. I know how to build good products, but I have no idea of how to buy a product and make it work for a company's problem. And luckily, that turned out to be a good decision. I got moved around so much. And in my close to 11 years with Cisco, I had 5 jobs. So it's like almost like every 2 years, I had a new job, 3 months to learn, 18 months to contribute, next 3 months to transfer to somebody else. I mean, the 18 months, every time I walked in, I always looked at it as, okay, what is my exit going to be? And I also had the leadership, sponsorship or somebody watching out say, okay, she can do something new. You just throw at her whether she knows or not, kind of develop that. That helped me to move. And to your point, I absolutely agree with somebody over here. I'm trying to see who said, it's always money is the or means to the end. And so is actually the same thing about whether it is technology. So is the same thing about, for me, it's all about, the relationships you build, the outcomes you produce, right? The outcome in a startup is you are so, um, how do I say, obsessed about the mission and value you want to create. You need the resources. When you have that kind of a high obsession about the mission and purpose you're against, resources will show up.
Just so much learning from that, right? About leadership starting at a young age and marrying the right person, making all the difference in the world, supportive spouse, and then I guess grabbing every opportunity that came your way and leveraging it for its strengths and learning as much as you can and willingly changing roles outside your comfort zone, out of product and engineering. All amazing lessons. I think all of you will agree. And then now, where are you? I mean, you then went on to become the CIO of Citrix. Was that your first CIO?
I mean, probably before I got my first CIO job, if somebody asked, what was your ambition? I would have never said CIO. I thought I'm coming to IT. I'll spend some time in IT. Then I go back to my product management or engineering role. That's what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted. But I enjoyed really, IT so much. I mean, in fact, my board members used to joke around. Every single IT guy want to go to product. You are one of those opposites who really enjoy it. Because the reason I enjoy is, end of the day, it's about outcomes and value creation you can witness. And again, that to me is, again, technology is my passion, but it's a means to the end.
Right.
So when I was working for McAfee, after Cisco, I went and worked for McAfee. I think I have been in cybersecurity industry probably a little over a decade now, at least 12 plus years I've spent. A little bit of time in my time with Cisco, working with our security business unit. And then I spent about 5 years with McAfee. And I didn't have any experience of so-called infrastructure experience. Typically, they look for in the CIO. However, cloud was just coming out. And somebody asked me, hey, we need a leader who can go and lead the cloud transformation, cloud journey for the company, not in IT, but for the company. And because I had my product engineering experience, they need somebody who can go and have toe-to-toe conversation with product. I mean, if you're a company or an enterprise, typically you have, especially in Silicon Valley, I mean, being in IT in a technology company is I would call it a blessing and a curse. The blessing is you don't have to teach people technology, because when you say cloud, everybody will say, yeah, we got it. And when you say cloud, everybody will say, yeah, we got it. Get out of my way. That's a second sentence. So how are you going to be the person who can be there of value for them, but at the same time respect the value they bring to the table, which means you have to speak their language. It's not that people are bad. I'm a true believer. Nobody comes get up in the morning saying, I want to be a bad person today. Nobody in the world says that. But a lot of time we cannot communicate with each other. Why? Because our languages are different, right? So that put me in a position to sort of look at the cloud transformation for entire McAfee. I was working with all the different BUs. In fact, they didn't even know how much they were fragmented. It helped me to bring them together. And out of blue, I just got a call. My mentor was, I think my mentor threw my name into one of the CIO recruitment that was happening from an executive recruiter. They reached out to me saying like, hey, we want to talk to you. It was a company named Click. It was actually a competition for Tableau. They were the first in memory before even Tableau was there. And it is a Swedish company. They were close to $1 billion in revenue. It's a public company growing at 40% year over year. The only catch was it was not a Silicon Valley based company. It was actually based out of Philadelphia, Radnor, Philadelphia. And my daughter actually went to college, just left for college. And me and my husband was already, for health reasons, retired. So he was like, well, why don't we just move and, move around the country a little bit, learn a bit more. Another risk taking. We just packed our bags and went to Philadelphia. Of course, the weather didn't suit. After 2 years, I have to come to a warmer place. That took me to Austin, working for a company that we split from Raytheon. So Raytheon is probably, if anyone knows, that is actually all the missile and everything that today you kind of talk about. Pretty much, they make pretty much in the world. And I actually ran their cybersecurity division as the CIO, or the company called ForcePoint. And that took me to Citrix. This is my fourth gig.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think a lot of risks have taken you naturally towards your strengths, and you've landed up.
My husband used to joke saying that you jump and then think, which probably most of the time worked so far.
But that's so against cybersecurity, don't you think? Cybersecurity is such a cautious, careful kind of field.
No, I actually agree and disagree. I mean, that's a myth, right? Because there's two myths. Oh, cybersecurity means you're very cautious. No, actually, in fact, you have to be a good risk analyzer and a risk taker in cybersecurity. Because you're actually dealing with, the notion is, if in cybersecurity as a solution provider, you have to be 100% right. And your adversary has to be only right 1 out of 100 or 1 out of a million. So you as a person has to think, and it has to be a risk analysis and risk embracing rather than risk avoiding. Only if you embrace, you can find the solutions, what you can do to combat that, right? So in my opinion, that's one. The second myth people say is, well, if you have a great risk or security, it's very friction oriented experience. That's also a myth. A good security is frictionless, right? I mean, you have to integrate user experience and security, and that's a biggest thing. I mean, I know there are so many founders here, and one of the things that you really need to think about is, if you're selling to a B2B, because you said B2B, I'm assuming there's a lot of B2B founders, user experience is a big deal in enterprises, right? And you cannot sell somebody saying it's accomplishing a mission, but it's not going to be a great user experience. So also as CIOs, many CIOs actually don't look at it. But if you have that as a value proposition, you probably are going to be in a better spot than others.
What about innovation? Innovation and what about innovation in cybersecurity?
I mean, I think it's not just cybersecurity. I would say innovation is a survival thing in today's world, fast-moving world. In cybersecurity, it's a dynamic, much more dynamic industry, right? Because it's a pace, right? I mean, look at if you kind of think about the whole industry evolved from somebody starting with a joke with an "I love you" virus, and it was a prank. It was purely a prank. Somebody just wanted to send a message that's going to just replicate itself saying, I love you. That's what it is. And then it kind of started. I still remember my early days. I used to work in system programming, hardcore Unix and system programming. And one of our joke is hacking others' terminal and writing on another's terminal. And the morning when they come in, they get all kind of weird stuff. They think their program is broken. In fact, we literally love, because today we call CI/CD real time. We used to have that every night, because of course we can't take work home. Every night when people check out, their build will be done. Next day morning, whoever didn't have a good build, they are kicked out of that build. And you'll have a message when we walk in saying that, hey, you're out of the build because you didn't pass the regression, or your build had an issue, so we dropped your branch. And one of our famous prank is writing on others' terminal, and especially the one who's more stressed about their, deadline, telling that their build has been dropped.
I'm only laughing because it's familiar to me. I was an engineer for so long. And
I mean, imagine an engineer coming in the morning. The first message they say, and you have a deadline, and we put a message. I mean, I'm sounding like a really mean person, but we have done that. But that's kind of where it all started as a prank. But there was no economical interest. Then it became a brand equity interest, right? I mean, if you kind of think about when McAfee came and when Symantec and all this endpoint, it all was so centered around antivirus. And it was predominantly from information loss. And to some extent, it is much more of brand equity issue. But today, if you look at cybersecurity, it's significantly an economical and political driven motive, right? I mean, nation states is the biggest cybersecurity, nation states and espionage is the business espionage is the biggest sector of cybersecurity today, because everything is digital. The more we went digital, the game has got elevated higher and higher, because the risk and the loss of value got higher, right? So with every single thing, be it digital transformation, cybersecurity got elevated to a different level. Cloud, cybersecurity got elevated to a different level. Now with the AI, I mean, just to give a stats, what used to take, I mean, when you have a vulnerability, we are all aware of that, security vendors, or, I mean, no, at the end of the day, some humans write software, I mean, even within the AI is writing, there's always some kind of an issue in a software. And you have vulnerability, you're announcing this is my critical vulnerability and here is my patch. In the past, it used to take about 4 weeks. I mean, Heartbleed or Log4j, you name it. It used to take roughly an average of 4 weeks to launch a mass attack. Like mass attack, when I say somebody can launch an attack that can go and impact multiple companies and look at all their assets that has their vulnerability and take advantage. You know, today, how much time it takes? Any guess?
Few hours?
It's less than 48 hours they can launch a mass attack. Less than 48 hours. You know how much time it takes to write a ransomware today? You don't have to be an engineer. It is actually real data I have, because we have something called Unit 42. And our Unit 42 is our research as well as arm that helps customers when they have a breach. We go and help with incident response. We also do preventive measures like, red team exercise with them, etc. And there is a lot of people in that who are not engineers, because they actually do risk assessment. You don't need to be an engineer for that. Today, those people can launch a red team exercise. The last one was in 24 minutes. One of the analysts who has zero knowledge of coding wrote a ransomware using purely AI, and he was able to penetrate through one of the customers, I won't name, who was actually working with us to test their systems. And they were pretty good. I mean, they were not one of those people who didn't have. So my point is, AI is changing the game even further. It's just the velocity has gone so much more than what it used to be.
Amazing. Wow. You just walked us through an entire history of the last 20 years, right? And it's like so education. It's amazing. And so now, does your team look different? The tools you use different? What has changed for you with AI?
I wouldn't say it's different. At the end of the day, every technology, I always tell that technology is ever changing, right? I mean, we had distributed computing, then came, client server versions, and then came service oriented architecture, then came cloud, now it's AI. I think it's always, regardless of the technology, it's all about business outcomes, right? The outcomes could be in 3 buckets. What are you doing to grow the top line of the company? It doesn't matter which industry you go, which company you go. There's only always 3 things I'd say. What are you doing to grow the top line? What are you going to do to manage the bottom line? In other words, a top line is a lot more space, right? Because it's a sky is the limit kind of a attitude you can take. The bottom line is you can only drive so much, maybe zero. No company can run with zero expense. But let's say nobody is making money out of their operations. So that's a bottom line. And the third thing is it's all about how you're managing the risk for the company. So it's a top line, bottom line, managing the risk. The risk comes around security. Of course, you have to wrap in user experience with all of these things together. But that's the foundational thing, right? In other words, you say, what are you helping to make fast and what are you helping the company to sell fast? That's what IT looks at. Am I helping the company to innovate faster and sell faster what we are doing and manage the operations? That's kind of, it comes down to the, bottom line when I look at my team's North Star. Everything else is the means to the end. So AI is, to me, is a means to the end, not the end. And we do leverage AI quite a bit from the velocity of how we deliver solutions to my business. We are using AI quite a bit in various use cases, whether it is for accelerating revenue or managing the cost in various use cases, from our G&A organization to our sales organization to our engineering organization. Various use cases, we are using it effectively. In my opinion, whatever you do today with the AI, it's probably the shelf life is maximum 12 months, maybe even lesser in some use cases, because we have built, before even the agentic was so much agentic, we built something which is close enough to the agentics with a lot of effort. It was great because my team learned and a lot of people got the real sense of how to deal with AI use cases, because it requires a different mindset. I mean, with AI, I tell that my team, either you can make AI work for you or you work for AI. Which one you prefer? Because you work for AI is making AI to act like a human, and that's like fighting with AI. Today, AI is, you have to understand the strength of AI and leverage it to your cause, which means you have to rethink. You need to have a mindset of, how do I disrupt my process? How do I disrupt the steps I do? There are certain things AI do really well, leverage them to the nth degree. There are certain things they're not good at it, don't fight it. It will get there, right? So that's kind of how we are approaching. I wouldn't say everybody is there. It is a journey. It's a paradigm shift for many people. I would say the people who have never learned the old way are much faster in learning the new way, because they don't know what is the old way. But the people who are experts in the old way have to really work hard.
So, I was just commenting earlier, very few women make it to the C level, and very few to the CIO and CTO. Most of them stay in marketing or product. So, any words of advice on how do we get into the C suite, and what can women do better to get there?
I think, first of all, I will start with whether you want it, right? I mean, I'm a believer it's not people can get it. It starts with, do you want it? There's a personal choice you make, right? I'm not saying if you make a personal choice, you'll just magically get there, but it starts with the personal choice, right? Take my own example, because I was very clear when my daughter was still in school. I had this, and I was I had a great career growth, but I was working in Cisco at that time, most of her school life. And I had this very important rule that I will not travel maybe once a quarter, maybe once a quarter. So if you kind of look at my 1 year, I may have done like 4 travels, like 3 days here, 4 days here, maybe one trip to India because I had a large team.
No, I hear you on that. I spent 10 years at the director level,
Exactly.
not taking a VP title.
Yeah. So my question is, yeah. So let me come there. So once you make up your mind, if you want to go there, then it is about, what is the ways to get there, and getting to, whether it is C level or being an entrepreneur, is surrounding yourself with the right resources, right? In executive ranks that you want to get in an enterprise, you need sponsors more than mentors. And then your willingness to really focus about the business outcomes, not just yourself. I mean, I'm not saying, be the Mother Teresa, don't think about yourself. That's not my point at all. But nobody gets to the top, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're an executive, focusing on you. You have to focus on what's the business outcomes, what is the purpose, or what is the mission you're going to create, because that actually has to be core. And then, of course, your sweat. There's a lot of sweat and blood that goes behind. It's like they say, right? I mean, the successful people, you see the iceberg, which actually floats around. You go, wow, but there's a big hidden beneath the surface, which is, it's not, I mean, I have so many war stories, how miserably I failed, how many, promotions I've been passed on. And I can say it's men or women, they're all going to have. The one thing though, because you asked about women, I will tell that one thing that women mostly don't do is take the time to build that relationship, and take the time to, because we are always focused on limited time, maximizing. There's no time for golfing. There's no time for going out for an evening dinner and networking. Because probably you're prioritizing family or whatever it is. It is one of those things that I have seen, and that's one thing I encourage people who are working with me as aspiring leaders and young women and or young professional period, is take the time to know what the resources you need. The resources come in three forms: people, technology, and your own knowledge and domain and education that you need to do. So remember those three, and what does those three require, and then invest in it. It is a journey. It's not a switch, it's a journey. It's actually okay to fall as long as you can get back up. I mean, I tell people, if you never fall, you'll never learn to get up. So it's okay to fall, but learn to get back up. That's all.
Thank you for those words of wisdom. I think that landed really well for all of us. So, what do you do for fun? And, is there a book that you recommend, or a book, a TV show, anything enjoyable that you recommend for all of us?
I like outdoor, and California is the best place for outdoor. So I do love running, hiking. I hate golf. I'm just being very public about it. My boss loves it. So, by the way, so I'm not I've tried a couple of times. It's too much for me. I think something you're not good at it when you're, in fact, somebody told me you hate golf because you're not good at it. Probably that's true, which means I have to develop a new muscle. So I've been contemplating that as I'm growing old. Maybe I should learn something that's more harder because it helps you to develop a new kind of muscle. But I love running, hiking. I do meditate every day. That's actually my anchor for life, not just for work. Actually, I do lately a lot more podcast listening. I mean, I feel like reading book, I think probably with the age, my eyes are not as great as I would like it to be. And it strains me a lot. I mean, because you're already spending so much time in the blue screen. So I prefer listening. My latest craze about podcast is Acquired and Step Up. It's a new one, Step Up. Actually, I actually picked it up from Acquired recommendation. Ben was making the recommendation, so I picked it up. And All in One is another one. A great time for gym time podcast. That's mine. And then I don't know. Movies put me to sleep. Like I kind of, if I want to sleep, I just turn on something, and then the same movie runs every day. Because every single day I come back, I forgot what is yesterday, so I'll watch the same piece again. It's kind of like a sleeping medicine for me. I turn on the TV, I can sleep in the couch.
Well, big round of applause for Meera. Thank you so much, Meera. I'm going to hold you down in the seat for just another minute to see if anybody had questions, audience questions.
So my question is you've got a lot of founders in the room, and I was an executive at a large multi-billion euro company. So what are the minimum baselines that you are looking for from a AI startup? Because coming from cybersecurity and such, is it SOC 2? Is it, what are you looking for? Because you can't take every startup in an enterprise company.
The question is, what is the minimum that you look for from a startup in an enterprise, right? So I think if you're a software company, or you a secure software is absolutely required today. Because, I used to tell in the past, we used to have the burglars come through the front door and the windows and the back door. That's how it used to be. So we'll tell, put a camera in the front door, put a window sensor, you're safe. But today, if you kind of think about it, you just need a crack in the wall. You don't need the front door to be open or the back door to be open. I mean, that's why zero trust as a security construct becomes super important. You're only as strong as the weakest link in the chain. So if you're a software and if you are vulnerable in my chain, I can't afford to have you in my chain. Even I would say that SOC 2 is just the minimum bar. Just because you're certified SOC 2 doesn't make it. So I think as founders, what I would suggest is, yes, you need SOC 2, ISO, and if you wanted to sell it to the especially into federal or government business, you do need FedRAMP and IL5 or IL3, various levels, etc. But I think as founders, one of the things, because most of you are in technology, from the get-go, think about writing secure software, which means from the get-go, have a person who's actually security mindset person or who's a security expert, part of your software development team, right? Whether it is a role-based access kind of thinking, you think about, because I see software that are like so well working, but they never thought about RBAC in their software at all. And you're going to fail miserably because it's not a startup where you have 3 people who will do everything. If you're taking it to the enterprises need RBAC. And if you're a B2B company, you have to think about some of those fundamentals. I mean, to me, yes, those certifications, but I will tell you, certification doesn't just because you have, doesn't get you. And again, the second thing I would say is when it comes to enterprise selling, what is the outcome you produce? Because a lot of times I see softwares come, vendors, I do talk to a lot of founders, not because I'm buying everybody. In fact, for me, that's another way of keeping myself educated and also making sure I have them in back of my mind. When I need it, I can call on, and I don't want to go shopping when I need it. It's almost like a window shopping. So you know what's available, and when the problem arises, you can do it. And typically I've been with multiple, my team also does that to some extent. Of course, there's a time commitment. Sometimes we can't give the time. It all depends on how busy at that point in time. But nevertheless, what I found is many times founders come and talk lengths and lengths about geeking out about their software, don't have a clear value proposition or the outcomes they're solving. So typically, end of the day, I ask the question, what's a customer pain you're solving? If you can't answer the question, keep asking the why this is important, why this is important. There are 6 whys. If you can't answer, then you have to really rethink about, are you developing the right solution?
Completely agree with it. It makes perfect sense. I'm from fintech myself. I understand a little bit on that side. But doesn't it really mean that maybe SaaS is walking away a little bit? That you will have to be bringing software in-house and building sovereign systems? Because really, unless you look into the code of a SaaS company and make sure for yourself, there's no way nor certification that would help you make sure that it's secure.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because in today's world, as the technologies, you can do it all yourself. Sovereignty many times come in the form of protectionism. With protectionism, always there is actually other hurdle you're killing is innovation. I mean, when I look at startup ecosystem, it's not going to be 1,000 people in my company can do all the innovation when I come to 100 millions of people innovating. However, zero trust is about what is the way to have a continuous verification and continuous validation, what kind of telemetry and what kind of data points that you provide that I can use in my posture to validate.
The last round of applause again. We have to pause only because I'm being flagged for time. Thank you so much, Meera. Really a pleasure having you.